I'm here, my name is Mendes. I'm originally from Brazil, living 2 years in Australia, and today I will talk some points, some tips and tricks, things that can help you to evolve your application, like from a monolith application to a microservice application. But first of all, let's talk a few things. Like, I'm not that good with jokes, but trust me, I'll do my best. And one thing that really interesting about myself, like I really like photos. So I just want to call you guys to take a small picture here. And hey, do something crazy. Yeah, I'm recording, guys. But yeah, I really love that things. So you guys know about me, I know a little bit about yourselves. But let's talk about our story. Once upon a time in the web, because every good story starts with this phrase, we had a few people who just come together as a startup, and they create an application called My Amaze app. My Amaze app came with the idea of MVP, just to validate few points about the business, and it works pretty well, but in a business way. But besides the code, the initial version had some issues. First of all, it was a monolith application, so after 6 months, after 1 year, they realized that was an application that was hard to evolve, hard to maintain, like add a feature, or remove a feature, or evolve a feature was something really painful for the team. And why? Because it was highly coupled code. Like, it was presentation layers and database layers and back-end layers. Everything was together in the same place. Like, we're talking about an application that starts 10 years ago. So that was something that in that moment was not the main focus, but it started to be. And because of mix of layers, they had some issues. One of the issues was related to the page load. Like, as you guys can see, you have 3 HTTP requests, each one for each component, but you have some issues around, like the first HTTP call, it was successfully, the second was just failed, and the third one, it's still pending. And the application was not resilient for those things. So that was another point. Let's talk about mobile website. 10 years ago, this was something that was interesting for some companies. And after that, they realized, OK, now we have 2 code bases. We have to duplicate our logic, which is insane. Another point. Pretty much this company had to care a lot about SEO. And Google is not benevolent if you're not following the rules. Not only Google, every search engine, if you're not following some SEO rules, you're just being punished. Like, this is one of auditions. And as you guys can see, we have really bad numbers, like 10 in performance. And this was just an example using a tool called Lighthouse. And it's enough. So, OK, we know those points. And we know the code every time when you look is something like that. You have that feeling. You really have that feeling, geez, it's hard to maintain. So what happens every time that you had that feeling, you try to avoid that behavior. OK, if I just wanted to add something, I'll just add more code and add more code. It's natural behavior. It's not a good way to play this game. Not at all. So, OK, we came with this idea. Why not, now that we have the business values totally validated, let's start improving, because improvement is a cycle, right? So let's start with MVP, our MVP, now version 2. With few ideas in our mind. One of them is, first, do it. Second, then do it right. And then do it better. It's one of the phrases who came long time ago of Agile Manifest. It's just another interpretation of the same idea who is release early, release often. Do it better, do it always better. And yeah, let's talk about make it better. So we have few things that we need to keep in mind, right? Our current application had to care about SEO, should be easy to maintain. Now the company grow and it's working distributed across three countries, like Australia, Brazil, and India, for example. And you have really, really huge gaps on those time zones. Should be easy to maintain, should be reusable. However, every time that you look at those codes, you can say, OK, I won't have this feeling, but in the end, that's the first idea who came in your mind. Just let it be, right? Because you can create a brand new application from scratch. And should be great. You can use all the evergreen technologies, but on the other hand, you need to have empathy. Not only with the code, but with the whole history that I already have, all the validations that code, which is not simple to read, but I already had all the experience. So this is not a possibility. A big bang is not a possibility. And what you can do? More constraints. Few things. We just realized that you shouldn't have, in any hypothesis, mobile website. All the things should be the same code base. You don't need to duplicate logic. Now it doesn't make any sense. Like, before it doesn't make too, but it was something that that company couldn't see. And looking at some architecture, some ideas, some approaches, should be something component-based, like, because right now, if we talk about front-end, if we talk about web applications, it's pretty much one of the good things that we can do, right? Should be web-friendly. Now we have different browsers. We have HTML5 APIs. We have all the things that we can use to improve the usability, the user journey from starting your application until do what they want to do. And last but not least, you should migrate page by page. But what? What that means? How can you just migrate one page in the whole monolith? Let's talk about the monolith. Few years ago, we just heard about microservices. It's a cool architecture pattern, so you can use. It's pretty heavily used. And we started with one question. Can I use microservices as a PWA application using React or Angular or Vue.js or any other framework library? We create frameworks and libraries, JavaScript, every single minute. And yes, we can. Why? First of all, let's talk about architecture, a really top layer. When we talk about microservices and those things, micro frameworks and micro bundles, we are talking about the micro way. The first goal is how easy it is to upgrade your application. They start with these ideas, and they put it together, and they call right now microservices. Like, if you have a bundle and you don't need to care about a lot of things, you have a micro bundle. And if you have a framework that needs to care about a specific boundary, you can use a micro framework, and so on and so forth. So a long time ago, AngularJS just called this as micro whatever, MVVW. And micro frontend. OK. So it's a microservice from a frontend. Quick quiz. What is a micro frontend? Is that a new tooling? Is that a new framework? Like, is that a new Chrome extension? No. It's a technique. So every time someone talks about you, like, to use this, you should use this framework. Or to use that, you need to use this tooling. It's not totally related. We are talking about approaches. We talk about architecture things. And About architectural patterns, who here have you heard about Strangler pattern? OK, a few people. The interest point of Strangler pattern is one of the foundations of microservice. But people usually don't talk too much about it. But what is a Strangler pattern at the end of the day? And how can this will be useful for our application? Let's give a small example. Let's say that we have a monolith application with this stack 2, and you have a brand new stack with only one page that you want to migrate. You need a reverse proxy. So you will say, let's think about reverse proxy like when you go to a shopping market, and they ask you, hey, do you want to pay by cash or by card? You have different queues depending on your answer. This guy that we call reverse proxy, just say, OK, you're going to the new page, so go to that side. Oh, no, it's not that page. It's not the page I migrated. Go to the old one. And you can start to say, OK, let me just check 10% of the new page. It works fine. No errors. It's working so far, so good. 20%, 30%. And you can validate other things. You can use some metrics. So the game starts to be cool. And how to solve code problems. Now we are talking about the architecture thing. OK, we understand how the broader concept about micro frontend, but about code. Because we are talking about a monolith application, right? So we need to clean the kitchen before start cook. First of all, align design teams and your developer teams. They should work together. And they have a lot of approaches to talk about front-end right now. One of old but really, really useful is atomic design by Brad Frost. The concept is quite interesting. Like you have atoms, molecules, you start to be granular until you become with a page. But it was a long time ago that was created. Now you have a lot of other options. So keep open, like we have here at the bottom. We are talking about material design, which pretty much the same idea, align everything. All the teams should be thinking together. We have the same goal. And things interesting about those two approaches. In the end, they have the same goal. They have the same idea. So the page one component is a composition of components. Page two can use or not one of those components. And things start to be plug and play. And everything's a component. Like, if you go back here, we talk about pages and other architectures, but it's pretty much components. Page one is a component, and all the UI components that are creating are components too. So why components? Small scope, so you really have well-defined boundaries about that idea. OK, I'm doing a search box. I don't need to know about the whole world. I just need to know how to do a search. And sometimes I doesn't even need to know, like, if you have a really component totally decoupled, you don't even know. You need to know that you have to call something in some way and it should work. And every single component is kind of plug and play, which is great. That was the first idea of the component. And that was the idea, pam, 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 pam. Right? Beautiful. Other things. We're talking about teams, distributed teams. So when you do a small component, it doesn't matter if a small component who's being used in only one page or 30 pages. Please, think about empathy. Other teams should improve that code, should evolve that code. It is one idea. Create demo pages. In this case, it's being used Storybook, which is a pretty cool library. And you can integrate with all the best frameworks that we have right now. And in the other side, you have all the validation, so you can easily plug and play. You can create scenarios, create some fixtures. OK, you have this component when this component receives a specific property, or when this property changed what should happen. You have all the things together. So it's easy to read. Even someone who don't know how to code know what that component does. And one thing that now is really, really upstream and is interesting that we have this discussion right now, because years ago we didn't have. It's about zero-config platforms, I would say. You can have bundles with zero-config. You can have a setup with zero-config, and so on. But a long time ago, we didn't have this discussion, so we didn't have a lot of packages, open source packages. So in some scenarios, you just can't use one of those zero-configs because of a lot of reasons, internal reasons, and some business reasons, or even some rules based on the country. In those scenarios, think in boilerplates as a solution. I will explain a little bit more about it. Like, why zero-config? First of all, opinions. Everyone here has a really and great opinion about all those steps: bundle, test, publish, linked. We have a lot of tools for linked right now, reporter, and so on. And if you look at GitHub right now, it's pretty impressive, because when we start the discussions, you can find a lot of other packages talking about zero configuration, such as Create React App or Angular CLI, Ember CLI. And this is great for us, because there's a lot of opinions that we can integrate or extend. However, as I said before, in some scenarios, you cannot just use one of this. OK, let's think about it, a good way to integrate. You have a tooling. One example can be you just use a YAML generator just for a small piece. As we said before, we are working with components. So you can create a small piece and can create as a standard in your teams. And for those, if you have to improve or like your boilerplate just upgraded and have to upgrade the components who are using this boilerplate, you can use this package called update YAML generator, which is pretty straightforward. You just install it. In that case, it's globally. Go to your component folder and run the command. And when you run this command, it will be updated. Magic. That's what we like. Don't repeat yourself. And other thing that you can have some benefits using this architecture is you have a lot of file invalidations. Let's think about it. Like, first of all, when you're doing a bundle, when you do a deployment, you had to create a build bundle file for your vendors, or your page 1, your page 2. Sometimes you just put all them together. We talked about application long years ago. And now you can have different approaches. Like, now you have different pages. You can create specific files for the page 1, page 2, page 3. And when you have invalidations, instead of having invalidations for the specific vendor, you can have for the specific file. When we talk about validations, we say, is a different file, it's a new file, your browser needs to download anymore. Or again. If you want to know more about it, Sam did a really, really good talk at Chrome Dev Summit last year about the future of loading a web. It's pretty interesting. Talk about this and other points and how the web platform is evolving to help all of us. So we have a checklist. Front-end architecture right now is great. So we evolved the application, and we are happy with this. And it's component-based. As we saw, a lot of applications in the market is using a component-based application. It's web-friendly. So every single developer who is using that has the whole knowledge and can use all the power of the web platform. It's mind-blowing. Like, we're talking about one thing that we had, a really application that we had 10 years ago, and now we're talking a brand new architecture. It was validated. We had all the steps. It's in production. and metrics, but metrics pretty much everywhere. After you just deployed the first page, you need to think, OK, the first page is done. Let's keep the flow. Let's create some metrics to validate. And those metrics can be a mix of combinations. Can be user conversion, can be errors that you have on that page. You can create your own, what makes sense for your application. There is just one example, a screenshot of a platform called New Relic. So you can just go there and do some search and create your visualization for that data. And start to see, hey, this just increased a little bit. Probably we're having a memory leak. We can work on that. Or, OK, the user conversion just increased. That's really good. Let's start work on that. New Relic is just an example. You can use a lot of them. For example, Google Tag Manager and Adobe Tag Manager and all of them. All those steps are related to one thing: release early, release often. When you have only one page, you don't need to do a deployment for the whole application. What that means, teams can have full ownership of that thing, of that code, that behavior. Usually they should have since the beginning, but sometimes they don't. Something happened in the middle of the process, and they just lost this track. And release early. You have something you can easily validate, ship to production, or ship in other environments before, do some validations, business validations, or even front-end validations, performance validations, and so on. And now we have our amazing app, the version 2. It's mobile-friendly. So it's totally web platform-friendly. And it's so nice. And about SEO, Google now loves this application. If you see the last edition, it was great, 91 of 100. Pretty cool. Everyone is happy. The user is happy. The developer team is happy. The business team is happy. And how should be? Now another point. Next steps, right? We always think, and OK, we did that. It's a cycle. Make it work, make it better, and we need to think about it. Like now we have a microservice, but things like zero downtime. What zero downtime is? What happens if your server just goes down? What happens for the user? Just see error page, or the person just don't see anything? How can you work with that? So you can use some toolings for this. One example is you create a serverless function and store your HTML in some place, just example. Or you create Nginx and store some cache. So at least for the user, when it access that page, it can see something. And you can make sure that at least specific core features are available. So in case like your application, your page just goes down for 10 minutes, for the user, it's transparent. The person didn't even notice that. And more about code. If you want to see a real case, just a proof of concept. So you can have first your monolith application, and after you can check page by page migrated. If you want to see those things and play around, this is a GitHub repo that I created. So just download it and start to play around. It's required Docker, but it's really straightforward. You just need to install it and run a command. Easy, how should be. Yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoy as much as I enjoyed to. And thanks so much.